All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Argen's current conversation. My name is Kat. I'm part of the team here at Argen, your trusted partner in smarter water management and cost control. For more than 4 decades, Argen has helped property owners and managers take control of water and sewer costs through data diagnostics and proactive solutions. Today's current conversation is going to be focused on something we see spike very often in January, new municipal rate structures, and the billing errors that often come with them. Incorrect rate applications, misapplied sewer charges, and mid-cycle changes can quietly drain thousands from your operating budget if you don't catch them early. Today, I'm excited to introduce our speakers who will be breaking down what you can control, what you can't control, and how Argen can help you. First, we have Arthur, who is Argen's co-founder and CEO, who after 43 years still finds new things and sees the same issues. And he's joined today by Suseli, conservation analyst who has been with Argen for 24 years with a focus on conservation for the last 10 years. We'll also do a live walkthrough of real water bills, so you know exactly what to look for. And at the end, we'll wrap it up with a Q&A. So make sure you save your questions for then. If you haven't done so already, we have a poll. Go ahead and answer that, and we're gonna see the results in just a few. So I'll give you a minute or two if you haven't answered the poll already. Okay. And we're going to close that out and let's see what the results are. All right, so we asked, did you have a water rate increase January 1? And some of you said yes, and a lot of you said we're not sure. Well, it's a good thing everyone showed up today. Okay, without further ado, Arthur, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Kat. It looks like the poll is 50-50. Well, 50% said yes, and the other 50% said, I am not sure, do not know. So that's interesting results of that. So thank you everyone for joining. This is our second seminar in the series of what to do when I have a high water bill. And the first step when you have a high water bill is always to make sure that that bill is accurate. Quite often, people say, I have a high water bill, I must have a water leak. And often that is the case. But it can also be the case that you don't have a water leak, that you have a billing error. And it doesn't matter how long you look for a leak that's not there, you're never going to find it. So it's very important when you get a high water bill to first stop and take steps to ensure that that bill is correct. So it's usage times rate equals cost. The volume of water and sewer you use times the water and sewer rates equals your water bill. And the first in the series, last October, we covered the usage part, meter read errors, multiplier errors, issues that were causing the amount of volume to be charged to be too high. Today, we're talking about the rate side of the equation, and the rate application and issues around rates were much more complex and much more varied. They are so complex that this is actually part one of a two-part series regarding rate issues in water billing. And okay, today's current conversation, we will be discussing rate changes, the timing of the rate change, billing catch-up errors and how rate errors apply to that, change in billing structure, change in rate structure, underbilling. We're going to have some Q&A time for you to ask your questions. And we also would like to touch bases on winter storms, what to do with winter storms, because there's a very large winter storm coming at a good part of the country. So let's start by defining what are rates. Rates are the prices your provider charges for your water and sewer service. And rates are legally adopted by your county commission, your city council, through statutes and ordinances. They have to have a process that they go through to legally pass the rates. If you have a private provider, they also have a process they need to go through to establish the rates. And the important thing to understand is that there are over 60,000 different water sewer rate districts in this country. 60,000 different water sewer districts. Now, they have similar types of structures. There's really 5 or 7 different types of rate structures, but what rates they have inside their structure is unique to each district. So it doesn't matter if you're in Houston or Milwaukee or Miami or Seattle or Phoenix or Trenton or New York, Argen has you covered for making sure your bills are accurate. So when do rate changes occur? And there's 2 different categories of when rate changes occur. You can have scheduled and unscheduled. And we like scheduled changes because they're well planned. The municipality, the water provider has a strategic plan, and they plan out 3 to 5% annual rate increases over the next 4 to 5 years. It's a published schedule. You can access that. It's great for budgeting because well, next year I might have a 5% rate increase, so you can automatically add that to your budget. You can see your rate increases in the future. When that 4 or 5 year cycle is over, they will enact another ordinance and schedule another 4 or 5 years worth of rate increases into the future. Very well planned, very organized. We really like scheduled rate increases. It's better for everyone. Unfortunately, a lot of municipalities aren't as well planned and have unscheduled periodic jumps in rate increases. They're not planned. They can be a huge surprise. You have very little notice, and they can be very large. Instead of increasing rates 5% every year, they wake up every 10 years and go, oh, we need a 50% rate increase. So they take a huge jump in their rates all of a sudden without notice, and that really whacks your budget. So when the rates change, January 1st is a very common time for rates to change. That's hence the topic of this particular webinar. You can also have rate changes at the first of fiscal year, and in the government arena, that's quite often July the 1st. Some municipalities have rate changes in August. There's others that have them in October. But when they're planned out, you can see when that is going to be. It can happen different times of the year. If you're in the metropolitan Atlanta area, DeKalb County had a 10% rate change last August, I believe it was, and they had another 10% change on January 1st of this year. So they had 20% change within 6 months of each other. So the thing is, you have to prorate between old and new rates. So if your rate change was on January the 1st, the thing is, your billing cycle, when your meters are read, in your meter read cycle, they don't follow accounting periods. So your rate change was on January 1st, but your meters, let's say, were read on December the 15th and January the 15th. Well, the usage from December the 15th to December the 31st, that's on the old rate structure. It has to be charged on the old rates, whereas January 1st to January 15th is on the new rates. So your provider has to prorate that cost between the old and the new rates. So it is important to prorate between old and new rates. We have quite often seen providers charge all of the usage under the new rate. That is a common error and a common overbilling that we see. Okay, so let's change to a change in the rate structure itself. And I want to give you an example, and bear with me when my thumbs work correctly here. Did that change to a spreadsheet? That's correct. Okay. So this is City of Jackson, Mississippi, who in 2024, February 1, 2024, changed their rates. The old rate structure, they had a base fee of $7.44 per unit on the property. For this property, it was $1,071. They had a very one-dimensional rate structure. It was $3.21 per 100 cubic feet of water, plus $4.47 per cubic feet, 100 cubic feet of sewer, which is $7.68 combined. And they completely changed their rate structure, unplanned, unscheduled, unannounced. It just happened. They hadn't had a rate change in at least 20 years. And the rates went from that structure, really a one-dimensional structure, to the base fees. It's based on meter size. Most multifamily properties in this area have either 6 or 8-inch meters, so they went up to $1,280 or $2,560 per month base fee. And the rates themselves, they went to a tiered rate. The more the property uses, the higher the rate. They went from $6 per 100 cubic feet up to 50 cubic feet to $16 per 100 cubic feet at 351 plus 100 cubic feet per month. That's quite a jump from $7.68 per 100 cubic feet. The impact was about a 50% increase in rates. Again, unscheduled, unannounced. So the issue that several issues we're seeing, but one that we see in particular is that they are misapplying the meter size to the billing. We have a client with multiple 1.5-inch meters on the property, and they're being billed for 4-inch meter base. So that's $440 times, I believe, 3 meters on this property, overcharged because they're billing an incorrect meter size. That occurred in 2024, and we're still trying to get the provider to change their billing. They are not recognizing that the rates are incorrect. So that's a complete change in rate structure. When you have one-dimensional, very simple rate structures, we don't see a lot of errors because there's not a lot of errors to make. When a municipality goes to a tiered rate structure, when they have complex base fees, then there's more incidents of errors. We see a lot more errors the more complex a water and sewer rate gets. And we are increasingly seeing more complex tiered rate structures around the country. The old one-dimensional single rate, flat fee rate, those are going away in favor of more complicated, more complex rate structures. More room for error. So the issue that we had here, just want to illustrate for an account, is the city of Jackson were years behind in billing. In some cases, they had not billed since 2017. When they changed the rate structure in 2024, they had not billed for as many as 7 years on some of their accounts. Just properties had not been receiving bills at all. So in late 2024 and early 2025, they started to catch up the billing. And they were doing several things wrong. On the volume side, they were pulling erroneous volumes and applying just erroneous amounts of water volume to the bills. They were charging for prior owners' usage They were charging for usage they had already charged before. They were taking an ending meter read, and they were charging for all the volume. They had never been through that meter. When you receive a water bill, you have to have a beginning meter read and an ending meter read to determine the amount of volume you're being charged for. Well, they had no beginning meter read. They were just erroneously putting amounts on bills. And we were able to get a lot of adjustments, a lot of credits for our clients, because just based on the volume itself was incorrect. The other thing they were doing, and this was on all the accounts that we looked at, was they were charging all the usage from 2017 to 2024 based on the 2024 rates, when rates had gone up 50%. So they had huge errors in their billing because they were charging all that volume on the new rates. So what the difference is, let's see, this bill may not show up. I realized when I posted this, it was fairly unclear. But we were able to get an adjustment on this account of just $165,796 adjusted on this account because of erroneous billing from JXN. And another account that we had was the adjustment. The bill was $446,927.96. That's the erroneous billing that essentially we made that bill go away. The client was not liable. They had never paid it. This bill, the client had paid the amount. So we were able to get an actual credit applied to the bill. And so they received their funds back that way. This client never paid this amount, so that liability went away for this client. So the thing is, we can't make a back bill go away. If you're being back charged, if usage went through your meter, then you have to pay for it. That's just, there is no free lunch. And if you use the water, if you use the sewer, then you have to pay for it. But what we can do is we can make sure the bill is accurate, and we can quite often reduce the amount that you owe. And if it's accurate and it's a fairly large amount, then usually you can negotiate a lower payment to the provider so you don't owe the entire amount of the bill. So I have done a lot of talking, and now I'm going to turn this over and let Suseli have the microphone.
Well, we already went a little bit over the delays in billing and what can happen if your bill is delayed or you don't get a bill for a few months or years sometimes. Delayed billing, of course, causes mistakes and also impacts your cash flow. Some billing issues take months to appear, and it just makes it hard to identify and resolve the issues. The higher bill, whenever you get a high bill, you almost all the time you think, I have a leak. You spend time looking for the issue. You don't find anything, of course, because it's probably due to a rate increase that happened a couple months ago, but you're not seeing it until now. And that's just because your bill is delayed. Arthur spoke about prorating between the old and the new rates and catch-up billing. So that's another thing that we see on delayed billing. You know, a lot of times if your billing is delayed, you receive this catch-up bill, but then the provider bills you for the higher rate instead of prorating the cycles for the old rates and the new rates. So that's very common. We see that a lot. Incorrect usage and meter read errors are also very common. They happen very often. The provider could be billing a meter that measures in cubic feet, but it's actually in gallons, or the meter could have a multiplier of 100, but it's actually 10. These type of mistakes cause severe overbilling. We have an example where the provider charged this property for 10 times more than what they were actually using. Okay, this billing error happened because a previous meter read was changed by adding an extra digit. In this case, these type of mistakes often happen when the meter rolls over. This was not the case for this property. For this property, they were not using the first digit as the meter read, and then they just decided, we're going to start using it. So they added this extra digit, and they started billing the property 10 times more than what they were actually using. And this was approximately $184,000 in overbilling charges. These mistakes are very common, and sometimes it's very hard to detect. The properties spent months trying to look for leaks. They were looking for leaks. They didn't find anything. They came to us. We figure out what happened. And to this date, they haven't been able to get this credit, unfortunately.
So, Sally, if I recall right, this client actually paid this bill. Isn't that correct?
Yes, this client paid this bill.
They paid the bill. This was in 2023. I'm looking for the dates on the bill. 2023 it occurred. And yes, here we go. Middle of 2023. Here we are in 2026, and they still have not gotten their money back. The lesson here, so the bill was $3,485. Then it goes to $39,000. If your bill goes up 10 times, don't just pay it. Contact us. Let's explore. There's an error somewhere. There's a huge error in this bill. And because this client paid the bill, they're still trying to get their money back, and they're having a really hard time.
That's right. That is right.
Okay, I think we have a next poll coming up. Do you feel that an underbill or an overbill is better? Kat, do we have a poll that we can share?
Yep, I will launch it now.
So let's see. Do you think overbilling or underbilling is better? We're getting quite a few results coming in. Give this a minute. Oh, it's neck and neck. Where's it going to end up? Oh, here we go. Overbilling is the head now. Underbilling is the underdog. What do we got? What do we got? Here we go. What are the results? Let's see. Let's give another minute. Anyone else out there? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go ahead and end the poll. And it is 54% saying it is better to overbill, and 46% saying it's better to underbill. So fairly close to even. That's interesting.
That is very close. So a lot of people think that underbilling is probably best, right? Because you're going to get a credit, no, I'm sorry, the other way. Overbilling is probably best because you're going to get a credit, and then underbilling, you're not getting charged for usage. So, it can go both ways. But the truth is that overbilling and underbilling create financial risk. Underbilling creates liability from unbilled usage and can affect budgets and financial planning. And with overbilling, yes, you will be owed a credit, but it will take time, sometimes months, it can be years to get it back. And that's not even mentioning the back and forth that you have to go with the provider to try to get that. So it's just waste of time.
That's correct, Cecily. I can see why folks feel underbilling is better because that makes your current budget less. Your current expenses are lower because you're being underbilled. But overbilling, if you're being underbilled, overbilling creates a credit, right? Underbilling creates liabilities. Liabilities can be quite large, and we're going to show you some of the underbilling liabilities that happen. I think we'll change the 46% who said underbilling was better. I think we might change your mind here.
Mm-hmm. So underbilling, it's very common, like I said, and it can go unnoticed for a long period of time. So utility providers may sometimes fail to bill you for certain charges which include base service fees, sewer charges, stormwater fees, and utility taxes. When these charges are eventually corrected, owners may face significant back billing. Okay. In this example, the provider is not billing stormwater charges, which is a base fee of $3.73 per unit. The liability is about $716 per month and about $8,592 per year. So it's important to know what you should be charged for.
And so Sally, it's correct that for this particular account, that 8,400 per year, that's something the provider can come back and back charge for. That's correct?
That mistake is very plain and simple. So the provider can come back and back bill for that amount. Yes. Very clear.
Mm-hmm. I know we had some cases one time, I forget which state it was in, but they were not charging the sales tax on the bill. And the state audited the water provider. The state found it and required the water provider to back charge all of their clients for unbilled sales tax. I forget how many years back it went, but that was an uncomfortable blip on the budgets when that back charge came through. And there's no fighting it. There's really nothing that can be done.
Right. There are times that these fees are charged separately, so it's important to check on that. With this particular client, that is not the case. So it is possible that you can get those charges on a different bill.
Stormwater is like that. Stormwater can show up on a bill by itself. In some parts of the country, it's on a tax bill, which is an unusual place, or it can show up on the actual water sewer bill or other types of utility bills that the property receives from the municipality. So they can be, and not all properties receive stormwater charges. They are typically mandated in large municipal areas, but they can be charged on different types of methods, typically an impervious surface, which is an estimation of amount of roof and parking lot space you have. They can have other ways they charge as well. So it can be very abstract kind of charge that shows up in unusual ways.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
Another type of underbilling is when you have a faulty meter. It's either not advancing or it's not measuring usage correctly. So a slow meter is whenever the meter is actually moving, but it's moving very slow. You could be using 50,000 gallons of water per month, but it's only registering 10,000. So that's a slow meter. It's just not registering or capturing all the usage that's going through the meter. Then you have a meter that it's not advancing. It just means that the meter stopped. It's not moving. It's not registering any usage that's going through the property. Okay, we have a couple examples here where we have a slow meter. It's under reporting usage, and the property has a liability of about $4,000 per month. And then we have another example where the meter is not advancing, and the liability is about $1,900 per month. We can determine how much the cost is because we've had these clients for a while. We've seen actual usage in the past. We saw whenever the issue started, and then we started reporting, this is the liability that you have, and so you can be prepared, in the future.
So I'll add, if you have a municipality that is really on their game, so to speak, and they notice that they have a slowing or stop meter, well, the industry standard is to look into the history of the account before the meter stopped and bill your historical average. In doing so, you're getting a fairly correct bill currently. You're at least getting billed close to what you should be. Municipalities like the one we have here that don't do that, because I believe this bill should be around $4,000 a month if memory serves right. Well, then you've got a liability ticking at about $4,000 per month here. because when the county recognizes the issue, replaces the meter, then they do have the right to go and back charge you for amount of usage that you have not been charged. And they base that on current usage after they replace the meter. That's done quite frequently, and you're getting a liability. This property is $4,000 per month. Shusilla, do you know how long this has been going on?
It's been going on for a few years.
Okay, yeah. You're at $150,000 now, right? So what we do in a situation like this is we advise our clients on what should you do. It's our client's decision. Should we contact the provider or not contact the provider? I'm being underbilled. I love that. So what we do is we give them accrual data so they can be accruing money on their financials. And if they desire, they can actually accrue the funds in the bank to pay an inevitable catch-up billing back charge when that day of reckoning comes. So when they get this bill for $150,000, then they've got the fund to pay for it. So what usually happens, though, is they can negotiate that $150,000 down, let's say cut it in half, and then they've got an issue where they have to accrue some income on their property because their expenses did not meet their accrual, so they would end up with an income on their statement, which is a good problem to have. And we've got another one where this one's even more painful of when we have an unbilled account.
An unbilled account, that's getting billed for the wrong number of meters is more common than you think, because you could have, 1, 2, 3. We have properties that have 28, 50 primary meters servicing the property. Anytime that you have more than one meter on site, it's recommended to do a meter isolation. A meter isolation just determines which meter is servicing which buildings, and let us know if the accounts that you're getting billed for are actually yours, right? So we have we've had two situations lately. One where we went on site, performed the meter isolation, right, and determined that one of the accounts that the client was being billed for, it's actually not, it does not belong to them. It's not theirs, right? And we determined that after we completed the isolation. The client just purchased the property a few months ago, so it was caught very quickly. Right now, that client owed about $28,000 for just 3 months of billing. Okay. The other situation we had was we went on site, determined that the property actually has 2 primary meters, but they're only getting billed for 1. Okay. This is not a situation where you want to find yourselves in, because this client now has a liability of about $27,000 per month. This is just for a meter servicing 110 units. So that's a lot.
Ouch. I don't have to ask anyone here if they would like to have a liability of $27,000 per month on a 110 unit property. And we did this, we took a series of meter reads on this meter and determined that that bill really should be around $12,000 per month because they have really high usage. So we are going to go in with a project to bring that usage down, get it down to the around 12,000 it should be. And then the client is going to approach the city and let the city know it's being underbilled, and will most likely be able to negotiate a reduced liability and payback for the uncharged amounts. And speaking with the attorney on this, that we did engage counsel on this to get some understanding. Counsel that has worked with this city. This is a municipality that will back charge. We know that. That's just going to happen. we have experience in most municipalities when we see this. When we have this scenario and we approach the municipality and let them know, they don't back charge. They just start charging moving forward. And that is a much better outcome. I know we'd rather not have to pay any utility bills, but that's not realistic. But most municipalities, when you approach them with this type of scenario, will just start charging you forward and will not back charge. So this one will, so it's a different scenario.
Yes. Another reason why a meter isolation is important is because whenever you have issues on site, it's easier to isolate the issues and resolve them quicker. Okay, so.
Very good point. Okay, so now we're going to do a couple of updates and then we'll go to some Q&A. Get my fingers to work right. So we went over these accounts back in October in our last webinar. We have a client with an autofill valve that on the swimming pool that automatically fills the swimming pool. They had an issue in late 2024, early 2025 that cost them $294,000, and they had to pay it. There was no way to not pay it. And this particular leak, autofill valve leak, is very it's like so many, you can't see it, you don't hear it, you don't even know what's going on, you have no idea that it's happening. So the client wanted to prevent this from ever happening again. So we installed a water signal monitoring device on their city water meter. And on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, we got an alert that we had an issue with the property. The issue was there was overusage of 28,000 gallons per day. If this issue had gone on for the next month, it would have been just under $25,000 per month excess water cost. But because we had the water signal device, we could get this issue stopped. It took, because it was so close to Christmas, it took about 36 hours to get it completely stopped, to get the maintenance person on site to stop it. But their actual increased cost is just a little over $800 versus $24,800. And this property has a normal water bill of about $15,000. They won't even be able to see an $800 increase. They won't even notice it on the bill. So it's a great outcome on the property. Another property had a meter multiplier error. The last time we spoke, it was around $750,000 in running. And now it has gotten up to $936,000 overbilling for meter multiplier error. Unfortunately, until we were brought into the case in September, this client had been paying the bill. So they have got a large credit coming. Unfortunately, this had been going on since 2023, and the statutes that the provider has on the books will only give them a credit for back to a year, which is about $350,000, but a whole lot less than what they paid out. A lawyer is engaged in this, and it may go to court. Probably will knowing this owner, but the client did stop paying the overbilling beginning in October, and they're paying a much reduced amount now. They contacted us because they had a high water bill. They had been looking for a leak for years and couldn't find it. When we came in, we realized you don't have a high water bill. You don't have a high usage issue. You have a billing error. And this illustrates why it's so important when you get a high water bill, then you make sure that that bill is accurate before you start paying it, please.
And you probably pointed this out already, Arthur, but before we did any projects with this client, we were able to see the problem. You know, we got the information, we got their utility bills and did the analysis, and we were able to see the problem before we got on site. Of course, we go out there to verify the issue, and it was a multiplier factor. Yeah.
Yeah, it took us all of 30 minutes to figure this one out. That's the thing is, wow, it was a quick. Now it took longer to verify it, but we knew what was happening very quickly.
Right.
So that's a good thing. That's because we're smart. 43 years of experience. Okay. So I get here. Kat, do we have some Q&A? Do we have any questions coming in? I don't know if I'm not able to see them if we've got questions.
We do have a couple questions here. I'll read them out to you. So it says, in many different cities, if you have a large leak and fix it, the water company will issue you a credit. I just got 12K from a water company for this. That Then it says, what if my billing went up in January, but the reporting is accurate?
So I think I heard a couple of questions. You had an underground leak and were given a sewer credit for it.
Mhm.
Sounds like that was okay. I want to touch bases on that real quick because this is something we see a lot. Providers will flip you a bone when you do a stake. They will give you a sewer credit on your underground water leak, but it will be a fraction of what you're owed. We see this over and over and over again.
That's right.
And we see it a lot. And so when this happens, we do recommend you contact us and let us review the account. What we will do is we do use engineering and mathematics to determine what the actual credit should be. So when you approach the provider, you can be asking for a certain dollar amount of credit. And we have quite a success of getting the providers to give the credit we calculate or something very close to it. So I'm glad that you contacted your provider. That's really good to do. I'm glad they gave you credit. I hate to say it, but the chances are it could be bigger than they gave you. Maybe they gave you the full amount. Some providers will do that. So
That's right. We had a client about, I'm going to say maybe 9 years ago, Arthur, that they got a credit of a little bit over $8,000, and the credit turned out to be $106,000.
oh wow.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're
Yeah.
right on that.
It can be, yeah. When I said fraction, I meant small fraction, not as in 75%.
Yeah, that was
less
huge.
than 10%. Yeah, that's a big
Huge
difference.
difference.
Yeah. And I believe the second part of the question was that the next bill was high.
Okay. Yes. So it says, what if my billing went up in January, but the reporting is accurate?
Well, several things come to mind. One is recently repaired leaks have a real habit of coming right back. And so if your bill continued to be high and the bill itself is accurate, that your bill is high, then the first thing I would recommend doing is going back and making sure that the leak repair held. Leaks have a habit of lasting for 2 or 3 weeks and then coming right back. We've seen that quite a bit. And if it's a leak that's in a challenging place to put eyes on, you may have to have underground leak detection or something to find it again. The other thing that happens, and we see this, is the water system inside your property is a pressurized, localized, pressurized, independent water system. And you had a leak spring up because the pressure got through a weak point in your service lines or a pump valve or something like that and sprung a leak. So you plug that leak, and then what happens after that is the next weakest point will spring a leak. And you fix that one, and then another one springs out. So you can have a cascade of water leaks occurring on a property. You plug one, another one comes up, you plug that one, another one comes up. Now, eventually that slows down to where the leaks are a lot less occurring. You get all your weak points taken care of. If you have an instance where you have old galvanized pipe that literally is rotting from the inside out and you have whole sections of it that are collapsing, that may never end until you do a repipe. That's an expensive item. It can be really hard to get your hands around that. And there are strategies to deal with that. We have a client that's dealing with that right now. Those are two items that come to mind. This really shows that you need a monitoring system, either a water signal device or a manual monitoring system that can monitor your usage and find these items as within 24 hours of when they come up, you have it repaired. Because leaks like this can be so hard to know that you have. They are in hidden spots, some areas that you can't even see. You don't even know you have the leak until the next bill comes out, until you got a surprise. So monitoring systems are low cost, great ways to pay for themselves.
We have a couple more questions. One says, does Argen locate, track, trace water meters or underground leaks and help us dispute for properties?
Yes, we do have underground leak pinpointing capabilities, and we definitely help work with clients in disputing water bills with their providers. We do a lot of that. And typically we're the first line of dispute. 95% of the time we're successful because we use mathematics and engineering techniques to prove our client's position. If that doesn't work and we have a stubborn municipality, then we can get counsel involved, but typically you don't have to get legal counsel involved with the work we do.
I think this one might just kind of go with what you just said, but it says, can Argen represent the property during the dispute and help avoid or delay cutoffs for the community?
Oh yes, definitely.
And
Definitely
then,
do that. Yes, and the key to that is the key to preventing a cutoff is having a dispute letter with your provider. You need to pay a reasonable amount of the bill. If you're getting water on your property, you owe a monthly bill, you need to pay a monthly bill. That bill needs to be a reasonable amount. If you're doing that along with a letter of dispute, you won't be, your service would be rare if ever if your service would be terminated. But you do need to pay a bill and you do need to have a letter of dispute on file with the municipality. Yes.
and then the next one says, how do I know the city has legally adopted the rates?
Oh, that's a great one. So when you go to your rate structure, you have a published rate structure. If you dig into that, you will find an ordinance. It has been passed and it's a legal document. It's in a public domain, so you have access and rights to see it. In these days, you can find this online, but you can find where the city council, the county commission actually adopted, voted, had quorum present, had the reading of the ordinance in proper passage, and will have a secretary of the court or whomever their legal authority is will have notarized that, attested to that, and so it'll be a formal ordinance that's on the books. Is somebody to do that.
Most providers have their rates published on their website. If they don't have it published, sometimes it's because they're small. But if you go there, they have to give it to you. They have to give you a copy of the published rates.
And a copy of the ordinance that allowed that rate to exist. Yes.
Next we have, what is your experience on pushing back on rate changes?
Pushing back on rate changes, that's a tricky one. You know, that really speaks to how the rates are changed, if it's scheduled versus unscheduled. Typically scheduled rate changes 5% per year. There's really no pushing back on stuff like that. If you look into the authority that your water provider has to pass rates, the city council or the county commission has that authority. Quite often the state has no oversight authority. The Public Service Commission can only say that they can charge for their cost, or they can put guardrails around how they come up with those rates, but they can't. There's really no oversight as to the rates themselves, the amount of rate, etc. So there's not a lot of pushback. In a way, the water provider, they are omnipotent, and so they can pass them as they want to. However, you can put political pressure, you can put public pressure, there's PR, there's things that can be done. If you're in a trade association, if you're in an apartment trade association, that can be brought to bear to gather allies to push back on something like this. If you have disparity between single family and multifamily, or disparity between different types of multifamily properties in an area, well, then you can push back on that legally, because that's discriminatory to have different outcomes on per unit cost basis. You can do stuff like that to push back on rates. And we have had some success on that. It's always worth a try to push back on rates. We can help with the language and some expertise to do that. And it's always worth a try, because we have seen significant changes in how rates are applied on bills through pushing back. That does happen. It's worth a try, but typically if they passed a rate legally, there's not much we can do about it. I won't say it's static or we can't change it, but usually there's really nothing we can do about that.
And then the last question said, how can we contact Argen if we want to use your services?
Oh, well, water@argeninc.com, water@argeninc.com. I believe we do have, you can capture this QR code, take a screenshot. You can call our telephone number. It's really better to email, or the screenshot will take you to a calendar that will set up a 30-minute or 15 or 30-minute conversation with one of our specialists, so we can discuss your case and see if there's something Argen can do to help with your particular problem that you have there.
Yeah.
Great.
It really doesn't matter the situation you're in. You know, we can help you determine how much you are supposed to be charged. So.
Get that right.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this current conversation, the first one of 2026. And a big thank you to our hosts, Arthur and Suseli. We hope this session was helpful for all of you as you prepare to go ahead and get going for the year. As we mentioned, if you do have any questions or want to know more about our services, you can always email us at water@argeninc.com. After this, we will be emailing you all the recording of this presentation, as well as a bonus winterization checklist as a thank you for joining us today. Today, we know we covered a big range of issues, and many of those are very complex. So if you are confused, or if you do feel like you have any billing discrepancies, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. That's what our team is here for. We're here to help all of you, and we don't want any of these scenarios that we talked about today to be your reality. So please reach out, get that discovery call in there, meet with the team, and we can help you move forward from there. We are also planning on doing a part 2 to this current conversation to continue this talk. So keep an eye on your inbox, and we will see you all next time. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah.